Cool. So before we begin, one second. Share my screen, and I have two questions, one for Amulya and one for Amul. So Amulya, this is your homework, right? This is your user flow diagram for two
Yes,
scenarios.
sir.
Right? Okay, the first one is fine. I'm pretty much able to understand. One doubt here I have is, so when you're uploading a book for exchange, you're saying you're starting it, uploading a book for exchange, enter book details, all of this is fine. But uh, what is a submit for review? And what do you want to cover here? I'm not able to understand what you mean by submit for review.
Sir, I didn't
Can you
get
explain me these two? So you're saying the flow for uploading a book for exchanges, you're starting it somewhere and you're clicking on something to say upload a book for exchange. Next thing is you enter book details and then you're uploading images of the book, right? And then exchange preferences basically you're saying how much you want to exchange it for. All those things will come up here, right? As far
No,
as my
set the
understanding.
exchange preferences means like they can
Hmm.
exchange it online or
Hmm.
locally or sending it to a local bookstore there they can take it from the local bookstores like that.
Hmm.
Like setting a exchange preferences means either they can take it from online order or they can give a address like some local stores where they can take they'll the order will go there and they can take it from there like that set say exchange preferences.
So I'm saying this is the location of the book. So for example, if I own the
Yeah,
book,
yeah.
you'll say this is with me, or if you see this book somewhere in a bookstore, and you'll say
Direct
this is
exchange or in direct person exchange or from like mediator or some place where the book can come and they can take like.
okay, okay. And what is this submit for review? Who, like who approves it, like or who reviews
Yeah.
it and then approves?
Yeah, first they can review it and they can confirm exchange.
They can view it, meaning whom you are referring to, like the person who's looking for a
Yeah,
book,
yeah.
who's finding the book.
Who's looking for a book can review the what they have what I have uploaded.
Mm-hmm.
And then
Okay.
they can confirm exchange.
Mm. But is that part of this flow? Like uploading book for exchange is basically like set exchange preferences, and then is it not like done? Like once you have said these are my preferences and you have uploaded, submit. Like once you've submitted, it's done, right? Do you need these two steps here? Like why do you someone have to? So I'm not sure if I'm understanding this right. Like submit for review gives me the idea of okay, once I upload a book, someone else from the app side, like someone who's managing the app, is going to review the things that I've uploaded and is going to approve it. Like only after it's approved, the other user who's going to or who is looking for a book will be able to see my upload. That is how this feels like. I'm not sure if you need this, like two steps in this part of this flow. Like confirm exchange, I think probably can confirm purchase, right? This makes sense here, but confirm exchange is so you're saying I think confirm exchange is fine. So you're saying set exchange preferences and confirm exchange. Like once you say confirm exchange, it's uploaded, right? So anyone
Yes.
can come and later see this book or whatever you uploaded. But to submit for review, I'm not sure. Maybe you can think about it, and then if you have like any other additional information that you want to show or any other steps that you feel is needed, you can probably include that. But just think about it, okay?
Okay.
Okay. And I think this is Amir's flow. Right, Amir. Yeah. So Amir, one more question for you here. When you say exchange, I think there are two different flows. Like one is select a profile to exchange and offer your books to exchange. Right? Like what is this select a profile to exchange refers to? I mean, like what are these two things? Like two different flows when you select an exchange.
செலக்ட் அ ப்ரொஃபைல் டு எக்ஸ்சேஞ்ச் வந்து எனக்கு ஒரு புக் வேணும் அப்படின்னா அந்த
Hmm.
புக் யார்கிட்ட இருக்குன்னு சர்ச் பண்ணி அந்த ப்ரொஃபைல் செலக்ட் பண்ணுறதுக்கு. கீழே ஆஃபர் யுவர் புக்ஸ்னால் என்கிட்ட இருக்கிற புக்ஸை என்னென்ன புக்ஸ்லாம் என்கிட்ட இருக்குது அதை நான் எக்ஸ்சேஞ்ச் பண்ணிக்கிறதுக்கு ஆஃபர் பண்ணுறேன் அந்த மாதிரி கொடுத்துருக்கேன் சார்.
Okay, and this sell a book, why do you need an inventory when you say sell a book? Is it not like you are selling the book that you have? Like, do you need an inventory for selling your book? What is this?
என்கிட்ட என்னென்ன புக்லாம் இருக்குது, ஸோ என்னோட இன்வென்ட்ரி இந்த புக்ஸ்லாம் நான் செல் பண்ண போகிறேன் அப்படின்ற.
Okay, அது இந்த ஃப்ளோவில் வேணுமா? Like, can you not have a separate ஒரு ப்ரொஃபைல் செக்ஷன் போயிட்டு தீஸ் ஆர் த புக் தட் ஐ ஹவ் அப்லோடட் ஆல்ரெடி, இதெல்லாம் நான் செல் பண்ணிட்டேன், இதெல்லாம் நான் வாங்கியிருக்கேன், அந்த மாதிரி இருக்கணுமா இந்த இன்வென்ட்ரி? ஸோ திஸ் இன்வென்ட்ரி ஆர் டிபிக்கலி சேயிங் இட்ஸ் ஹிஸ்ட்ரி, ரைட்? History of your transactions or history of what all you have bought or sold on this platform, அந்த மாதிரி தானே இது?
இல்லை சார், செல் பண்ணுறதுக்கு என்னென்ன புக்ஸ் வச்சுருக்கேன், ஸோ பையர்ஸுக்கு காட்டணும்ல என்கிட்ட என்னென்ன புக்ஸ் இருக்குது.
Oh, you're saying these are the things that I've uploaded for selling, இந்த மாதிரி?
Yes sir.
Okay, right. Right. Okay, all right. Okay, what will happen here? Update inventory to sell now. Then you're basically opening the camera app, or adikapura the flow goes on. You're uploading the details of the new book that you're trying to sell. All of that will come under this flow, correct?
Yes sir.
Okay, fine. Right. Right. So we'll start today's class. Once again. Share my screen. Okay, the screen is visible, right?
Yes sir.
So I think we'll start with wireframes, right? So today's class will be covering about what are wireframes and why are they important. So we have covered until now. We have not dived into how our app is going to look like. So wireframes will be the basic or starting point of how is our app going to look like, or so we'll now start lazing or decide on layouts, lazing components. So this is the starting point of your UI design, we can call maybe. Not literally, but at least this is the starting point of how your app is going to look like. But what is a wireframe and why is it important? To make it simple, I think we can call wireframes as the blueprint of your mobile app or your website or whatever product that you're trying to design, right? But why is wireframe important? Though we know that what a wireframe is, and like even if it's a blueprint, but why is a blueprint important, right? So I think the basic idea of why you need a wireframe or why is it important is it's very user focused, right? So you don't care when you're trying to design a wireframe or build a wireframe. You don't care about how things look mostly. So what you care about is how is it helping the user. So where can the users interact with, or how is it? So look, the previous step to this was our user flow, right? So there it was a very basic idea of the navigation only. So how is the information going to flow for the users? Given a scenario, how is the information going to flow? Now we are converting the user flow into a structured manner. So if you're, say for example, you're trying to take one of the user, last class you did two different user flows, right? So if you're trying to take one user flow of uploading a book for exchange, in the user flow there's only boxes or it was just information flow. Now how do you transform all of that into a screen? So that is where wireframes come into, and they're very user focused. Clarify features in navigation, like what are the features that are going to be part of your app and how are they or how are the users going to start using those features. Where should they click? If they click on, what happens? Is it going to be a like separate screen, or is it going to be a modal? So all these things you'll start, understanding or defining at the wireframe level. And the final reason is also it's very quick and cheap, right? You can so wireframes don't take a lot of time because you don't concentrate on actual images or actual content that goes into the screen. Wireframes are very basic, so they are quick and cheap to create. So even if there are a lot of things that you want to change, if you say for example, uh, middle of the project, the layout is not going to work, it's very easy to go back and change it, right? So to understand it, very simple. I'll show you an example that I showed you in the last class, right? So this one. So this is again you can call this a blueprint or a wireframe of a house. So this is what all the civil engineers or architects do even before constructing a house. But why is this important again? Is uh, it's very not cost effective, and this wireframe also um, puts everyone on the same page. Like for example, the builder, the house owner, probably the electrician, the plumber, whoever is involved in this project, right? They can all sit and talk about how the project is going to perform, or how are the users going to navigate in the house. Say for example, what is the entry point here? It's very easy to say this is your entry point, and from when you enter first, what is the first room that you'll see? Probably is it going to be the living room, or is it going to be the kitchen? So based on the requirements of the owner and all of those things, right, will be easy to decide here. And I think any shortcomings, say for example, do you need a attached bathroom? So all these things, right, very basic things of how do you navigate within the house, and where can be the switches present. So all these things are very easy to be decided here. And it's say for example you have not done this like properly, right? So the reason here, so if you see there are a lot of details here, but they're not aesthetically any details. They look like just boxes or curves that I put here. Like say for example, if you see the entry point of this is um not 1 second. I'm not very sure where the entry point is. Sorry. But yeah, so but if you look at this, right, you know where the kitchen is, where the dining room is, and from the kitchen, how do you navigate to the dining room? From the dining room, there's a study room, and this is the entrance for the study room. So you just know. So for example, if you see this is the restroom and this is the master bedroom. So within the master bedroom, what all things do you have? There's a bathtub, there's an hand washer, so, and there's this master bedroom, and also there's a living room here. In the living room, which side is your, TV unit going to face? So all these things are finalized at the blueprint level or at the wireframe level. So if, when the designer goes and shows this to the customer, they will have some inputs on this can be done or I don't want it this way. So it's very easy to get feedbacks at the wireframe level, right? So I think this is where wireframe helps in developing or designing a product. It's very less cost effective, and it's also easier to iterate, get feedback, and easier to iterate. Right? So this is a very easy example which we probably see when this is a very basic understanding of a real world example of a wireframe. I'll show you this. Okay, before showing you this, there are a few things that we need to consider since we're going to do a mobile app. I'll only talk about the aspects of wireframes like for the mobile app only. I'm not going to touch upon the web. Maybe we'll do that later. But we'll touch upon some of the basic items or things that you need to consider when you're building a wireframe for a mobile app. Right? So I think these are the two different, basic structure of a wireframe, or not even the wireframe, the basic structure of a mobile app for iOS and Android. So the basic structure is probably divided into the status bar on top. The status bar is basically the bar where you see your phone starts, the time, the signal on your device, right? So all these things will probably sit on the status bar, and the navigation bar and the app bar. So in iOS it's called the navigation bar, and Android it's called the app bar. Both of them are very similar, but the naming conventions are a little different here. The app bar is nothing but your probably if you see the name of the app basically comes here, and there can be some UI elements. Say for example, when you go to the next screen, your back button probably can be here. I think iOS treats this a little differently, and Android treats this a little differently. They might have some menu icons here, or some of the apps probably don't differentiate between iOS and Android. So the app bar or the navigation bar remains same for almost all the apps, right? So you don't have to worry about the numbers that's shown here, but I'm showing you this to get an understanding of how the structure, when you are going to do a wireframe, right? How do you define the structure, basic structure of the app? And the screen here is going to be your major part of your interactions or your major content that is going to be displayed. Excuse me. You don't have to worry about the number here, but the major section of this, structure goes into the major UI elements or the primary content that you're going to display. And the tab bar or the bottom nav bar is your placement of your icons. So in iOS it's called the tab bar, and Android is called the bottom nav bar. This is where your primary navigations are going to sit. So in our case, I think will probably be your profile or the list of books that you've already done. So the profiles. So say for example, in a WhatsApp or an Instagram, right, the bottom navbar is basically your profile section, your reels section, your home section, and your I'm not sure. I think I forgot the fourth one. There's also chat section, right? So these are your basic core features of your app. So all these things. So these are quick to access, right? Bottom nav bar, the placement of the icons or the features that you're putting here are the primary form the primary core of your feature. So this is the basic structure of the mobile app. Next screen probably, and so the reason why it is divided into like status bar on top, app bar at the top, and why is the bottom nav bar at the bottom? Why can't your primary navigations go to the top? Right, there's a bit of reason why all of these are put together in this way. I'll show you why. So I think you might already know this, but I'm still showing you this, right? So this is a left-handed users, what do you call a heat map, and this is the right-handed users heat map. So the area where it's painted in red, right? So any information that you put on this red color area requires both hands for you to access. You cannot access it within one hand. So, for example, if you're using it on the right hand, so anything that you put on the place where it's red, you'll need another hand to go touch it, or you'll probably have to, you cannot hold the phone in the same position if you want to touch something here, right, on the red area. And the place which is yellow requires a position shift of your hand. You can, I think, probably try and interact with any of the apps. Let's say, for example, you scroll, you can do it from here. But if you want to, say, for example, an Instagram chat or a WhatsApp chat, right, all your chats are listed here. The tab that is here at the bottom is it's easy for you to touch it and open it even without changing the position of your hand. But anything that's here in the middle of the screen, you'll have to change your position or you'll have to extend your thumb a little bit more and then touch that is here. So that is what says requires a position shift of the hand. And the third part, the green portion, is easily accessible, thumb accessible area. And this is the reason the most of the bottom nav bar or the primary features of your app are put under the bottom, right? And if you see any CTS for that matter, like when you try and register for an app, any button that you see, it's at the bottom. The primary reason being, or say for example, the keyboard, why does a keyboard appear from the bottom, right? It's easy for you to type with one hand. So these are the things that you need to consider when you're trying to place your, navigations at the bottom or the contents or your buttons. All these things, keep this in mind, like requires both hands and things that require position shift of the hand and easily come back to the area. So I think this is a little important thing when you need to have in mind when you're trying to build your Wi-Fi. And the next screen is, so I'll just show you a basic set of layouts probably you can consider when you're trying to build your Wi-Fi. Always keep in mind that the structure, like the first part of your screen always goes for the status bar and navigation bar, right? Or the app bar, even if it's for Android or iOS. So, and the bottom nav bar, home indicator, I think can probably include it for Android also today. In both the devices, I think we have a small line that is at the bottom, which you can swipe and then go home directly. So that is what home indicator refers to. But this bottom nav bar and tab bar is your positioning of the core features of the app. So having this in mind, I think you can probably consider these layouts for your app if you're trying to build your wireframe. So this is a blank layout, and the next one is your one column layout with the top nav bar. See, this is a top nav bar, and probably two column layout with top nav bar. So this is the nav bar. So what happens, this is probably in some of the apps, right? You will have a section where you can click on the icon at the top right, and this will open another screen or another probably a chat screen. Say for example on LinkedIn, if you're all using, I think the chat is on the right corner, top right corner. When you click on this, the chat opens in a new screen. So you can also position some of the navigation icons here. So it depends on how do you want to treat that feature. If you're putting something here, make sure it's not a very primarily access feature. In our use case, don't it's not a ideal experience to put the, probably you can put the profile section here, but it's not very ideal to put the primary exchange and sell functions here. It's not right. So these are the set of basic layouts for mobile design that you can consider when you're trying to build your uh, wireframe, right? And some of the wireframe elements might include, these things are the very basic set of things that you can include in a wireframe. So apart from this, I don't think you can worry about, you don't have to worry about any of those things like, what is the font that I'm going to use for my app, or what is the color that I'm going to choose, or what are the spacings that I'm going to follow. You don't have to worry about any of those things. But have in mind that, okay, make sure wherever there's going to be a title or header, just make sure you include that. And then any button, say for example, any interactable items like a button, a search box, or if there's going to be a menu that is going to list down some of the options, just make sure you include those items. Like, because what is important is all these items help in understanding the user interaction. And if it's an image, right, you can, this is how an image is represented in our wireframe. And video, for example, is represented using the same image icon, but with a play button on the center. So you don't have to, worry about the minute details of your app or the, UI wise. So just, I think in most wireframe, I'll show you some examples so you'll understand it better. But just have this in mind. These are some of the, not just some. These are the very basic elements that you need to, include in your wireframe if you're trying to build. I will show you. Yeah. And before I show you some examples, there are two different types of wireframes. One is a low fidelity wireframe, and next one is a high fidelity wireframe. Right. Some people also call it low. There's another classification which says low fidelity, mid fidelity, and high fidelity. The difference between low, mid, and high is nothing but low is basically your hand-drawn sketches. So you don't dive into a tool. You don't typically depend on a tool to do your low fidelity. Most of the low fidelity wireframes are just hand-drawn, and there's a reason why hand-drawn wireframes are also very important, right? And so I think typically you can probably say these two. High fidelity wireframe, some people call it, when you call it a wireframe, you don't worry about colors and all those things. But some people, high fidelity wireframes, they call it the end result of you define all the colors and all of those things. So for now, the classification that we'll consider is just two. One is a low fidelity wireframes, which is your hand-drawn sketches. You don't have to worry about your spacings, or you don't have to worry about, aesthetically, it has to look pleasing or don't have to worry about that. That's mostly your low fidelity wireframes. And high fidelity wireframes is a little polished version of your hand-drawn sketches. So when you're doing your high fidelity wireframe, that's when you move to a tool and then you start building your wireframes or making it look a little pretty and all those things, right? And you define a lot more details to your high fidelity wireframes compared to your low fidelity. So yeah, I'll show you. So low fidelity wireframe. A low fidelity wireframe is a simple outline that uses basic shapes and text to represent UI elements. And they act as an initial blueprint or skeleton of the app, showing the core features and roughly where they are in the UI design, right? So, for example, I think this is your very basic low fidelity, or right. So you don't have to. This is probably built in an app, or it's not hand-drawn, but something if you this does not have any primary details, right? If you see, does not have any text on what is going to be here. So just by looking at it, you just get the layout of where am I going to put my header. So if your header is going to be probably here, then follows the search bar, then feature investment is probably this is a text again. But if you see, right, this is also a text area, this is also a text area, but this is bigger and this is smaller. So what it tells me is this is going to be the header. So the font of this is going to be a little bigger. And this is also going to be just the title for the cards that I'm showing. So Feature investments is basically the label for this card. So what am I going to see here? This is a card one. So this immediately tells me there's going to be a scroll on the, there's going to be the horizontal scroll on the right side, right? And clicking on this is also is going to another saying if you're going to display a detailed version of the card or a detailed page of the card. And then there's another section. So first the featured investments, and this comes to another section where top list. So now the top list is not laid out same as the featured investments. This layout is a little different, right? And there's a button here which says see all top lists. So this is the basic uh, structure of a low fidelity wireframe. And even here, right, they've just put down as navigation bars, and they've not defined what navigation bar is, right? So this is the basic. So just by looking at it, you get an idea of how the home screen is going to look like. How's my flow of information going to look like? What is the first thing that I'm going to put here? Search is the primary. Probably for this app, they have put your search is a very primary use case of they put it on top. It's not just an icon, but an actual search bar itself is persistent at the top, right? So, and again, this is another very simple example of an app. Can you tell me what app is this as we're looking at it?
Instagram.
Yeah, wait, I'll just yeah, you're right. So even if you see this here, like this does not have any detail, but how are you able to identify it as Instagram? You just follow the patterns, right? You just know by looking at it, oh, these are the images, and this is the bigger image of the post that someone has put in. This is the profile section. You're able to mind map your thinking of where are we seeing this structure? Like so very easily able to identify it. And this does not have any detail on what are the icons that are going to be present here, what are the icons that just know as a designer who has done this work and right, they have a set of things that they need to put here. For someone who's externally seeing it, might not exactly know, or is this going to be an image? Why is an image here? Is it going to take to the profile section of the user? So none of that is identified here, right? But as a designer, when someone has done this, right, they have everything figured out, but they've not put it here. Why? Because the more details that you add to a wireframe, right, it increases complexity, it increases uh, the way you get feedbacks. So people start, when you show the screen, they don't concept. So when you show the screen to a user, they don't start looking at the UI. Just you get information on, so you just tell them, um, tell me what you understand from just by looking at the screen, right? So when you start putting text here or an actual image here, they'll start asking not very relevant questions on the initial level. They'll start pinpointing on the utilities and the details that are not very important at this stage. So you don't, to avoid that, you just show this and then get feedbacks from the user, or you talk to the, in terms of an actual product that's being built, you talk to the engineers, is it even possible? All those things get sorted here. And now if you feel like something needs to change, if for example, I don't need 5 different navigations or things here, I can change it to 4. So all those things, I think will, are important, or consider all those things when you're trying to do it. And this is again another example of low fidelity wireframe. This is a very hand-drawn sketch. So probably right home, browse by space. So this is again an image, and when you tap on this, there's an arrow which says you can tap on it to see more cards. And there's another section where you can scroll down to see more cards or images. So and probably this is the next screen. If you see, this is a block where it's a search screen. If you click on this takes you to a different page. So a low fidelity wireframe is only this. This is the amount of detail that you need to add, and to make sure all the things that I've put in is easy for the user to navigate to, easy for them to find where things are. Only these things that are very important when you're trying to build your low fidelity wireframe. Um, Probably the next is high fidelity wireframe. And see, if you see the polar opposite of a low fidelity sketch is a high fidelity wireframe. This type involves much more detail and often includes design elements like colors, fonts, and images. Okay. So few people see it differently. Not always your high fidelity wireframe needs to have all these colors, fonts, and images. But let's show you an example. Right? This is the journey of a wireframe, probably if you can call it. Like this, two are the hand-drawn sketches, and this is the low fidelity wireframe that I showed you in the beginning. This is you use probably used using a this is probably made using a tool, and this is when you look at it, it's just hand drawn, right? Probably you can also this is a low fidelity and this is an high fidelity, and your high fidelity does not have to always have colors. It can also be in grayscale. So, for example, it doesn't have to be you don't have to decide on blue color or all those things, right? So, what is important is from here this screen that you see on the right, it has all the icons on the right. So this is more important than defining colors. So now you know in a low fidelity wireframe you're going to have 5 different navigations at the bottom. But in an high fidelity wireframe, you'll have to fix on what are those 5 things. And how's the searcher? So probably start putting in the actual content that is going to appear on the top. So this is the journey of a wireframe. And this is an example of an high fidelity wireframe that I told you, right? So, for example, it probably says chat's going to come here. So this is a high fidelity wireframe, or you can even call it a mid fidelity wireframe, right? So some people call it high, some people call it mid. This is basically the first screen of an WhatsApp app. So this is a chat status calls, and within chat, how's the structure going to look like? There's going to be the image of the contact name, and probably some information here, which is probably the message that they have sent, right? So, and then when you open this, how's the next screen going to look? Probably how's the chat screen going to look like? So, these are some of the examples of wireframes. Um, any doubts so far?
No, sir.
So,
No, sir.
okay, fine. The screen is good. Like I changed my screen. I'm now more showing the presentation. Change my screen to different. Okay, one second. I'll show you an example of one of the wireframes, right, that I did for. So if you remember the two different use cases that I showed you in the last class, where one is the register flow of my the EV exchange app that we were discussing, right? So this was one of the flow. Like the register flow start, enter mobile number. If it's a valid mobile number, then ask for the OTP, and when OTP is verified, ask for user's location. And if they say yes, land them on the home page. If they say no, go to the location settings, right? So now I'll show you the wireframe that I did for this flow. I'll show you here. So for example, this is the start. This is the moment I open the app, this is the screen that I'll be able to see. This is your status bar, and this is your app bar, right? And below the app left section for this, and below this is going to be your probably the logo and the app name. And then the first screen is going to be your enter mobile number, and this will be the first screen. So when you enter your mobile number, so if it's a valid mobile number, you then enable the button of saying send OTP, and I send OTP, and the next screen is where you enter the OTP and click on login. The moment you click on login, the next screen is going to be allow location access. So these are the three different options that will probably appear. And then based on whatever I select here, say for example, if I say only while using the app, the next section I'm going to see here is probably this, where it will be the search section in the top. The map section is going to appear here, and the recent places probably. And this probably I would call it a, say for example, I put a home, ballot, and profile sections at the bottom. And this has a little bit more detail, so you can probably call this the middle, mid fidelity wireframes. But this is the basic wireframe of the flow that is on top. Start, enter mobile number. So how is this screen going to look like? Is this enter your mobile number, this flow, right? So, and probably you take up a different flow next time, and then say, if I click on this particular section, like this section, how is the next screen going to look like, or how's the navigation, or probably decide on to click on home. If this is and there's a thing here. Instead of putting a recent place, I can just probably say this, right? So, and recent play is also the right thing to do here because this is the first time that you're registering into the app, and it cannot be recent places, right? Probably it can be nearby, right? So let's say nearby stations or whatever. So something like this, right? This is what you decide on. So when you land for the first time, what are the things that I'm going to show to the user? It is going to be the search bar, the map section, and what are the nearby stations that are available for them. So yeah, I've done this on Figma, but I don't want you to do it on any tool. So I'll stop and so for the two different flows that we did last time, right? The user flows that we did last time, the book exchange and the book, if you're going to sell a book, how is the flow? For those two flows, I want you guys to do a hand-drawn sketch of the wireframe. That'll be your homework for the next class, right? So yeah, that's it for today. I'll stop the recording. Any doubts? Okay, I assume there are.
Sir, hand-drawn
Yeah,
sketch for each stages, like how you show for the two different cases, right? You're asking.
correct.
Okay.
So I'm stopping the recording.